Emma Carter stood outside the courthouse with the divorce papers folded neatly in her hand. The autumn wind tugged at her hair, but she barely noticed. 3 years of emotional humiliation had ended with a judge's signature. Around her, reporters waited for wealthy businessman Ryan Lawson to emerge, eager to capture photos of his confident smile. When Ryan finally stepped outside, he wrapped an arm around his mother, Gloria, as though they had just won a championship. He looked at Emma with a smug grin that carried every insult he had ever thrown at her. "I hope you learned your place," he said coldly. "You'll never live the life you had with me again." Gloria laughed softly. She should be grateful we kept her around this long. Emma didn't answer. During their marriage, she had endured endless comments about her simple clothes, modest upbringing, and quiet personality. Neither Ryan nor Gloria knew that she had hidden the truth about her family. Years earlier, Emma had walked away from her billionaire father, Richard Carter, determined to build a life where people valued her character instead of her last name. She believed Ryan loved her for who she was. Instead, once they were married, his kindness disappeared, replaced by arrogance and control. Ryan climbed into his luxury sedan, convinced he had won everything. The mansion remained in his name, the expensive cars were his, and most of their shared investments stayed under his control. His closest executives, all hired through his recommendations, congratulated him with cheerful messages, promising a celebration that evening. Emma watched the convoy disappear before taking a slow breath. She reached into her handbag and pulled out an old phone she had not used in years. One contact remained at the top of the screen, Dad. The call connected almost instantly. Richard Carter's warm voice answered. "Emma?" "I've been waiting for this call." She closed her eyes for a moment before speaking calmly. "Dad." "Fire every executive Ryan ever recommended. Today." There was only a brief silence, before Richard replied with quiet. "Certainty. Consider it done." Ryan Lawson arrived at headquarters, the next morning expecting another day of complete control. The marble lobby, usually buzzing with employees eager to greet him, felt strangely quiet. Conversations stopped as he walked by and people avoided making eye contact. His confident smile faded when he noticed 2 security officers standing outside the executive elevators. One of them stepped forward. "Good morning, Mr. Lawson. The board has requested that you proceed directly to the conference room." Ryan frowned. "Requested? I own this floor. I'm sorry, sir. Those are our instructions." Annoyed, Ryan stormed into the boardroom, where every director was already seated. Their expressions were cold and unreadable. At the head of the table sat the company's chairman, who slid a thick folder across the polished surface. "What is this supposed to mean?" Ryan demanded. "An internal audit," the chairman replied. "Every executive you personally recommended has been suspended pending investigation." Ryan laughed in disbelief. "That's impossible." "It isn't." The folder contained pages of financial records, unauthorized payments, fake vendor contracts, and evidence of bribery stretching back several years. One by one, Ryan's closest allies were being escorted from the building. Their company emails had been disabled, office doors locked, and access cards cancelled before sunrise. Ryan immediately grabbed his phone and called his best friend and chief financial officer. The call went straight to voicemail. He tried another executive, then another. No one answered. Within minutes, news alerts began flashing across his screen. Senior executives suspended in corporate fraud investigation. Major investors demand emergency review. Ryan's heart pounded. "This is sabotage," he shouted, slamming his fist onto the table. "No," the chairman said firmly. "This is accountability." Across the city, Emma entered Carter Global Holdings for the first time through the executive entrance. Employees greeted her respectfully as Richard Carter welcomed her with a proud smile. "It's time everyone knows who you really are," he said. Hours later, a televised press conference shocked the business world. Richard introduced Emma as his daughter, and the newly appointed executive vice president of Carter Global, Ryan, watched the announcement in stunned silence. The woman he had mocked, underestimated, and discarded was not powerless after all. She had simply chosen not to reveal the power she already possessed. Emma's first official day as executive vice president began before sunrise. Instead of gathering the senior executives for a grand speech, she spent the morning walking through every department, introducing herself to employees by name. She listened as receptionists, warehouse supervisors, accountants, and customer service representatives shared stories about the fear and pressure they had endured under Ryan's management. Many were surprised that someone in her position wanted to hear their opinions instead of delivering orders. One employee hesitated before speaking. "Ma'am, I was fired because I refused to alter financial reports. My manager said honesty wasn't profitable." Emma looked him in the eye. "You were punished for doing the right thing. Starting today, you have your job back." The news spread through the building within hours. Workers who had been unfairly dismissed received calls inviting them to return. Honest managers who had been ignored were promoted based on merit rather than personal connections. Emma also announced better health benefits, performance bonuses, and a confidential system for reporting unethical behavior without fear of retaliation. Meanwhile, Ryan raced across the city from one investor meeting to another. He arrived wearing his most expensive suit, determined to save his collapsing business empire. Every meeting followed the same painful pattern. Investors welcomed him politely until they saw the latest headlines exposing fraud within his leadership team. One after another, they declined to work with him. "I'm afraid our board has decided to withdraw," one investor said. Another simply slid his proposal back across the table. "Your reputation has become too great a risk." Ryan left each office more desperate than before. At the same time, investigative journalist Daniel Brooks published the first installment of an in-depth report. Using leaked emails, financial records, and interviews with former employees, he revealed years of intimidation, favoritism, and corruption that had flourished under Ryan's leadership. The evidence showed that Emma had repeatedly opposed unethical decisions during her marriage, only to be ignored or mocked. Public opinion shifted dramatically. Newspapers praised Emma for rebuilding trust instead of seeking revenge. On social media, thousands admired her calm leadership and compassion. For the first time in years, Emma realized that true strength wasn't measured by how many enemies you defeated. It was measured by how many lives you helped rebuild. Rain poured relentlessly against the windows of Emma's home as she finished reviewing reports from the office. The house was peaceful, a welcome contrast to the chaos that had surrounded her life only weeks earlier. She had just poured herself a cup of tea when the silence was broken by loud, desperate knocking at the front door. At first, she assumed it was a delivery driver seeking shelter from the storm. But when she opened the door, she froze. Standing on the porch was Gloria Lawson, the elegant woman who had once worn designer dresses and expensive jewelry, now looked almost unrecognizable. Her coat was soaked, her hair clung to her face, and the confidence that had fueled years of cruel remarks had completely disappeared. She held a small suitcase with trembling hands. For several long seconds, neither of them spoke. Finally, Gloria lowered her eyes. I don't know where else to go," she whispered. Emma remembered every insult, every holiday ruined by Gloria's cutting comments, every dinner where she had been mocked for her modest background, every moment Ryan's mother had encouraged her son to treat Emma as though she were never good enough. Behind Emma, her longtime friend Sophia walked into the hallway and immediately recognized Gloria. "Don't do this," Sophia said quietly. "She never showed you mercy. She doesn't deserve yours." Gloria's shoulders shook as tears mixed with the rain. "Ryan is gone," she admitted. "After the investigations began, everyone abandoned him. The house has been seized, our accounts are frozen, and the people we called friends won't even answer my calls. I spent years believing money and status were everything. I was wrong." Emma studied the woman standing before her. The arrogance was gone, replaced by exhaustion and regret. She knew she had every reason to close the door. Instead, she stepped aside. "Come inside before you get sick." Gloria looked up in disbelief. "You'd still help me?" Emma nodded gently. "I'm not helping because of what you did," she said softly. "I'm helping because I refuse to become the kind of person your family tried to turn me into." Gloria broke down completely, covering her face as she crossed the threshold. For the first time in her life, she understood that genuine kindness could never be bought, and that forgiveness was far more powerful than revenge. The courtroom was packed long before the trial began. Reporters filled every available seat, cameras waited outside the entrance, and the nation followed every update as Ryan Lawson's financial crimes case unfolded. What many expected to be a straightforward prosecution soon exposed a far more complicated web of deception. Witness after witness took the stand. Former executives admitted they had created shell companies, falsified invoices, and hidden illegal payments for years. Several confessed that Ryan's closest business associates had encouraged risky decisions while quietly protecting themselves from blame. They had praised Ryan whenever profits increased. But the moment the investigation started, they erased emails, destroyed documents, and pointed every accusation toward him. Ryan listened in silence, his confident expression fading with each testimony. For the first time, he realized the people he had trusted most had never been loyal to him. They had simply used his ambition to enrich themselves. Gloria was called to testify the following afternoon. With trembling hands, she looked toward Emma, who sat quietly in the public gallery beside Richard Carter. "I spent years teaching my son that wealth was the only measure of a person's worth," Gloria admitted, her voice breaking. "When Emma entered our family, I judged her because I believed she came from nothing. I encouraged Ryan to ignore her opinions, to control her, and to treat her as if she should be grateful just to be his wife. I was wrong." The courtroom fell completely silent. After the hearing ended, Gloria stepped outside where dozens of journalists surrounded her. Instead of avoiding their questions, she faced the cameras. "I owe Emma Carter an apology," she said. "Not because she became powerful, but because she showed dignity when I showed cruelty." The statement spread across television and social media within minutes. Later that evening, Gloria visited Emma privately. "I don't expect forgiveness," she whispered. Emma smiled gently. "Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened," she replied. "It simply means I won't let the past control my future." Tears streamed down Gloria's face as she thanked her. Inside the courtroom the next day, Ryan stood before the judge. Looking briefly toward Emma, he lowered his head and quietly accepted responsibility for his crimes, ending years of denial with a single guilty plea. A year passed, and Carter Global had become a symbol of integrity and innovation under Emma Carter's leadership. What had once been known as a powerful corporation was now respected as a company that genuinely cared about its employees and the communities it served. Emma introduced scholarship programs for underprivileged students, funded small business grants for struggling entrepreneurs, and expanded paid family leave for every employee. Her philosophy was simple: success meant little if it wasn't shared with others. Richard Carter often watched his daughter from his office window with quiet pride. Years earlier, he had feared he had lost her forever when she chose to leave behind her privileged life. Now he saw a leader who had earned respect, not because of her family name, but because of her compassion, wisdom, and unwavering sense of justice. Gloria Lawson also embraced a very different life. No longer interested in wealth or social status, she volunteered every week at Emma's charitable foundation. She organized food drives, visited shelters, and spent hours mentoring women who were rebuilding their lives after difficult marriages. Though the guilt of her past never fully disappeared, helping others gave her a sense of peace she had never found in luxury. Ryan served his prison sentence without complaint. During his time behind bars, he completed business ethics courses, tutored inmates studying for their diplomas, and reflected on the choices that had destroyed his marriage and career. After his release, he quietly accepted a junior management position at a small manufacturing company, determined to rebuild his life honestly instead of chasing power. On the anniversary of Carter Global's transformation, thousands of employees gathered for the company's annual gala. As applause filled the grand ballroom, Richard invited Emma to the stage. She looked across the crowd and smiled. "There was a time when I believed winning meant proving my enemies wrong," she began. "But life taught me something greater. Real victory isn't watching others fall. It's rising without losing your kindness. It's building opportunities where others created obstacles. And it's choosing integrity even when revenge feels easier. The audience rose to its feet in a standing ovation. As Emma looked toward her father, Gloria, and even Ryan sitting quietly in the back of the hall as an invited guest, she realized that forgiveness had not changed the past, but it had transformed every one of their futures.